Welcome back, everybody, to the Fantasy Birds. With the NBA season starting next week, I'm going over 10 must-avoid players in your 2023 fantasy basketball drafts. 5 guys in points leagues, 5 guys in category leagues, 10 total guys that I am avoiding in your upcoming drafts. Let's not waste your time. Let's hop right into this video. The first guy I'm avoiding in points league is going to be Mikal Bridges for the Brooklyn Nets. Now, I love what Bridges was able to do last year when traded to the Brooklyn Nets, becomes the star of that team. But in a points league, you got to get him in the second round, right at the end of the second round, around ADP of 20 overall, and I'm not willing to pay that price tag for a guy, while on the year only averaged 20 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists to go along with the steal, and a little bit over half a block per game. Now, the numbers did increase while the usage went up in Brooklyn, but the numbers only went up to around 26 points a game, 4 rebounds, and just over 2.5 assists. So the numbers aren't blowing me away. While the usage is much higher for Bridges in Brooklyn, I don't think that necessarily warrants a late second round pick in your points league drafts. While he does add some things in category leagues, the free throw percentage, the threes made, and the field goal percentage, not necessarily willing to draft him in my points leagues in the end of the second round. The first guy I am avoiding in my category leagues is Nikola Vucevic, the big man for the Chicago Bulls. Now, Vucevic, pretty solid year last season, but now you're paying right around pick 30 to 35 ADP. And for Vucevic, this is just way too high in my opinion. If you can get him in the 60s, maybe. But each of the last 4 seasons, his field goal attempts and field goals made have decreased in all 4 seasons. Now, the field goal percentage was a career high for him last year at 52%. I can't necessarily say I'm very confident he can replicate that numbers having a career high season at age 32. Heading into age 33 season, Vucevic is just a guy I believe on the downswing of his career. Doesn't really give you anything on the defensive side of the ball with steals or blocks. That actually the combination of steals and blocks was the lowest total he's had in the last 4 years of his career as well. So you're seeing some pretty sizable dips in his numbers across the board over the last 4 seasons, and I'm not willing to take that ride with him yet again this year. I believe time to hop off the bandwagon. Vucevic has been a great fantasy guy for us the past couple seasons, but this is the year that I am done with Vucevic. I think that Chicago team is kind of starting to lean away from him as well. So in category leagues, outside of the points and rebounds, not someone I'm willing to invest in with an expected decrease in that field goal percentage. Second guy I'm avoiding in my points league is going to be Derek White for the Boston Celtics. Now, the Celtics are going to look a lot different this upcoming season. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, a lot of high usage guys on this team. I just don't see where Derek White fits into this equation where you have to draft him. Guy who's only averaging 12 points, 3 rebounds, a little over 3 assists. Just not something I see a huge ceiling for this upcoming year when there's 3 other players on his own team that expect to have much bigger roles than he does. So Derek White's not someone I'm looking to grab in your points leagues. Second guy I'm avoiding in category leagues is Josh Giddey for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, this is all relative to his current average draft position. Around 50 overall, where you're going to have to draft him. While Giddey does provide some pretty good numbers, points, rebounds, and assists-wise, that's kind of where the value for Giddey falls off after those 3 statistics. So it's going to depend on your build. If you are looking for those 3 counting stats, he's just going to be a solid player. But with a 73% free throw rating and only 1 3 made per game from that shooting guard position, it's really tough to get behind him in category leagues when there are some pretty solid players in Oklahoma City, that young core that we've been hearing about for years. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren. This team is finally coming together. They could be a much improved team. And with Giddey, I just don't see in category leagues with a low free throw percentage and those defensive numbers that don't blow you away to carry him in improvement to warrant a draft selection around 50 overall. But if you are fading that free throw percentage, it definitely does bump Giddey up, I will say, in those category leagues. The next guy I'm fading only in points leagues is going to be Walker Kessler for the Utah Jazz. Kessler's primary advantage in fantasy is going to be his block numbers. Last season as a rookie, he was getting over 2 blocks per game, but in your points leagues, these blocks numbers don't mean nearly as much as they do in category leagues. In those category leagues, Kessler's obviously a great block guy you can get late to go along with some points and rebounds. But in your points leagues, when those numbers don't mean as much, there's a lot of competition on this Jazz front court with the likes of Lauri Markkanen, Kelly Olynyk, John Collins brought to the team. So while Kessler should have a decent role and still should sustain value in those category leagues with those elite block numbers, in these points leagues, it's just way too high. The ADP is skewed from those block numbers. That's the only reason why in my points leagues, I'm not looking to draft Walker Kessler. The next guy in my category leagues I am looking to fade this upcoming year is CJ McCollum for the New Orleans Pelicans. Another aging guy on this list, CJ McCollum, age 32. We saw some serious dips in his numbers from a year ago. Keeping in mind, this Pelicans team was ravaged with injuries, Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram missing a lot of the regular season, and CJ McCollum's numbers were still dipping even with all these injuries. These guys back and healthy at the beginning of the year, even more of a reason to fade McCollum. But last season, CJ had the lowest field goal attempts since 2018 in his career. Not only that, he actually had the second worst field goal percentage of his career to go along with these low field goal attempts, while at the same time also being a sub 80% guy from the free throw line since 2020. So you're not really getting any advantage from him in these free throw and field goal percentages, and also had the second highest turnover rate of his entire career. So McCollum's really been an inefficient player from what we saw him back in Portland. And on this Pelicans team that looked to get the ball to Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, and have young guys like Herb Jones, mostly defensive, but still, Kyra Lewis, Dyson Daniels, and even Trey Murphy when he gets back and healthy later on in the season. There's just too many mouths to feed for a healthy Pelicans team for me to draft CJ McCollum with these deteriorating percentages in my category leagues. Next guy in my points leagues, OG Anunoby. His ADP is completely skewed for category leagues. He gets a lot of his value from the steal numbers, nearly 2 steals a night, almost a block per night from OG, but his name has been floated around in trade rumors. For a guy who's averaging a tick under 17 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists, just nothing I can get too excited about in a points league when those defensive numbers that he is very reliant on don't mean as much. So kind of similar to what we said about Walker Kessler and those block numbers. It's kind of the same deal here with OG Anunoby and the steal numbers. They just don't mean as much in these points leagues, so that's why he's not on my radar in these type of formats. Jaylen Green is a guy I'm avoiding in my category leagues. Definitely more of a points leagues player, but there's a lot more added competition for this Houston Rockets team. Fred VanVleet, Dylan Brooks, some natural progression in their careers from guys like Jabari Smith, Tari Eason, and Şengün. This Rockets team has a young core, and it's just not like last season where there wasn't much to go around in Houston. A lot of these guys, just the usage was off the charts. And for Green, a guy who does really well from a point scoring perspective, doesn't really give you much across the other categories. Outside of scoring 22 to 25 points a night, where he could land this season, the field goal percentage at 41% and the free throw percentage under 80% don't really do him any favors, along with some seriously low block numbers and the steal numbers under 1 per game. So Jaylen Green, the inefficiency is just too much for me to get behind drafting at this position. Now, in your points leagues that don't account for missed shots and field goal percentage, Green definitely gets a bump up here, but in my category leagues, outside of the points scored, he just doesn't do enough for me to warrant this selection. My last guy I am avoiding in my points leagues is Buddy Hield for the Indiana Pacers. He's already made it clear he wants out. Indiana probably wants to trade him, but for the time being, it looks like he's just going to be stuck behind Tyrese Haliburton and Benedict Mathurin, who I think they want to give more time alongside Haliburton to see how they play together. For a guy like Hield that's in points leagues, doesn't get much outside of your 3-pointers made and your steals, only about 5 rebounds and under 3 assists. Hield's just not a guy in points league I see having any sort of upside on this Pacers team, and if they trade him, we have no idea where he would end up going. In your category leagues, it's okay taking him late with the threes, the free throw percentage, the steal a game, while at the same time shooting 46%. But in my points leagues, I just see no ceiling for Hield. That's why I'm avoiding him, where I can get some other younger guys that have a much higher upside in my drafts. My last must-avoid player on the category side is going to be Keldon Johnson. He's not a category league player. He's strictly a points league guy, and I think he's due for some regression in that category as well. While he does go out and average 22 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists last season, let's address the clear elephant in the room. They add some serious competition here. Victor Wembanyama, number 1 in the draft. He's stepping onto the floor. Devin Vassell, I expect to take a step forward. Trey Jones. There's just other pieces on this Spurs team that I would much rather have in category leagues. Keldon Johnson's already giving you abysmal defensive numbers and a poor free throw percentage with some low rebound and assist numbers. It's really no reason for me to draft him in my category leagues. In a points leagues, I can understand it, but still, I don't see him having the role that he did last year with these other guys taking steps forward in their career. Let me know what you think of these 10 must-avoid players in fantasy basketball. Tell me who you're avoiding, if you agree or disagree with any of the guys on this list. Love to hear your guys' opinion. Drop a like and subscribe if you want to see more fantasy basketball videos. We are going to be coming out with stuff all during the regular season. But that's going to do it here. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next week with another episode of the Fantasy Birds.